We have big updates to share from Marcus Freeman following his Thursday press conference, and we're going to talk about it in this video with Eric Hansen and Tyler Horka. Folks, please hit the thumbs up on this video and subscribe to the Blue and Gold YouTube channel for more content. We've got injury updates, potential like position changes among the defensive backfield. Eric, where do you want to start with this? Big defensive back updates today.
Yeah, I think if there weren't any injury factors in this, it would really be intriguing on its own, but you're going to layer that on top of it. You'd wonder if there was going to be some personnel changes. But two of your starters are still listed as questionable. Leonard Moore, the preseason All-America cornerback, is listed as questionable. Devontae Smith, who missed all of last game with an ankle injury, is still listed as questionable. Yeah, he was missed. And Marcus Freeman was a little bit more optimistic, felt like he had a pretty good Tuesday and Wednesday, but he's working on a backup plan. And we heard some new names, Christian Gray in that mix, Dallas Golden in the nickel mix. Ben Minnick has been in it. He's a third option, but Carson Hobbs has really struggled in playing all the nickel snaps in the last game, playing some of them in the Miami game. And there's a lot of other possibilities that could pop up in the defensive backfield. And then you have a Don Schuler suspension for the first half with targeting.
Which will, of course, lead to Tay Johnson getting his first start, Tyler.
Yeah, really excited about that because I think that the game that Tay Johnson played against Texas A&M, if you just look at him individually, that was the best overall safety play of any of the Notre Dame safeties in these first two games this season. And I think the cornerback situation outside of Leonard Moore has been, especially at nickel, like Eric was saying, has been the biggest worrisome spot for the Notre Dame defense on that back end. So you've got to look at that nickel spot and say, okay, cross your fingers that Devonta Smith is going to play in this game. Like Marcus Freeman said, it's trending that way. But if he doesn't, if he can't and doesn't play, then you're in a world of hurt there because Carson Hobbs has not been up to the challenge, quite frankly. And Eric mentioned Ben Minnick. We saw quite a few Notre Dame practices in the fall, and Ben Minnick's coverage was even further behind Carson Hobbs. It really didn't look like Carson Hobbs had a coverage issue in fall camp, but it's shown up in the games. I'm not sure Notre Dame wants to see where Ben Minnick is at in an actual game. Purdue has some pretty impressive wide receivers, and they're going to throw them at Notre Dame in waves. So it's nickel. And it's safety for me. And one more thing on these defensive backs, Marcus Freeman was explicitly asked about Jadon Blair and maybe where he could fit in with the Don Schuler not being available to play in this first half. He pretty much point blankly said, yeah, Jadon is progressing. He's improving, but he's a first-year player, and he is not going to get snaps over Luke Talich, Tay Johnson, Jalen Stroman, and the four safeties that have been playing in addition to Don Schuler, obviously. So that's kind of where we're at with the Notre Dame defensive backs.
Tyler, if they, like, let's say Devonta Smith is out, which, cross your fingers and hope that he's not, like, what do you think that Notre Dame would do? Like, do you think they might actually start Christian Gray at nickel? And then do you go with Mark Zachary or Hobbs? Maybe, like, I've heard that Hobbs might be moving back to outside corner. Like, do you think it's one of those two guys?
I actually like Carson Hobbs at field corner. You saw some of that last season in garbage time. And remember when Benjamin Morrison was getting injured, then Christian Gray was getting injured, and you had to shuffle in Leonard Moore and Carson Hobbs. I thought Hobbs played pretty admirably on the outside. So that is definitely a possibility. But I'm not so sure about Christian Gray at nickel right now. Like, he's going to have to prove that to us. He's going to have to prove it to Notre Dame coaches that he can handle that because, let's face it, in that Texas A&M game, he did not handle his field corner responsibilities. So can he play nickel? I'm not sure. And it's probably time to give Dallas Golden a shot. He's a guy that everyone talked really highly about coming in, right? So it's kind of trial by error for Notre Dame at that nickel spot right now and really the entire secondary as a whole.
Eric, I mean, we saw a report from Pete Sampson, really just a tweet saying that, CJ Carr had like a tell. If his feet were aligned, it was a run. If his feet were offset, he would throw it. Now, I don't know if A&M knew about that. It seemed like Gino Guidugli, who met with the media on Tuesday, didn't really seem that it was a concern in those first two games. And that's got to be something that's very easily fixed. The defensive backs and, just the defense in general, maybe not so much, but there's no concern here. So insights on this, Eric, and then anything else that Gino Guidugli said on Tuesday before we throw it back to Tyler.
Yeah, I mean, Gino basically said, yeah, we got it fixed. And he pointed out, they scored 40 points and he felt like they left 21 points on the field with some of the decisions. He would have liked to see, for example, CJ Carr throw it up to Malachi Fields instead of throwing it away, give him a chance to go up and win a 50-50 ball. But he is incredibly impressed with the first two games of CJ Carr in terms of his poise and his understanding defenses. Gino, who the last quarterback he coached from scratch was Desmond Ridder at Cincinnati, a 4-year starter there. And he said CJ is way ahead of where Desmond Ridder, a third-round draft choice in the NFL, where he was at the same stage of his career.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that stood out the most to me about Gino Guidugli on Tuesday was the way he was raving about CJ Carr and Malachi Fields, a little bit of the same. I think everyone in the Notre Dame locker room, no matter what side of the ball you're on, sees it in CJ Carr and knows that they've got a guy that they can rally around. The defense obviously is another issue, but like this Notre Dame offense is absolutely trending in the right direction. And it kind of starts with CJ Carr and the things that he's able to do. As for the tipping plays thing, I was a little bit shocked when I did see Pete Sampson's tweet because, I'm sitting with the bird's eye view in the press box. So is Eric. And I don't think either of us recognized it in the game. There's probably some smarter people in the Texas A&M booth that might have and maybe relayed a message at halftime, before then, after then. I'm not sure. The bottom line is CJ Carr still played a fantastic game outside of maybe his one or two mistakes. And I think that's going to be the case going forward, especially if this tipping plays thing is no longer a thing, which I think it's a pretty easy fix for Carr and company.
Yeah, I do not blame anyone for not noticing that. That's not something you usually keep an eye on. Look, you guys all see the discourse on social media from the Irish fan base and their level of upset with Chris Ash and the defense. Look, the O-line was so bad against Miami and was like, all right, listen, like we know this O-line can play. They're going to bounce it back against A&M. And I would say, even though they weren't perfect as a unit, they bounced back. Like, the defense wasn't great against Miami. Certainly wasn't great in the first half against Texas A&M. But like, I guess what level of concern, or Eric, I could say what level of optimism do you have that they're going to be able to turn this thing around? Like I personally think that Notre Dame smashes Purdue on Saturday and then beats Arkansas by double digits, and then they really get this thing back. I think the defense is going to get back on track. I think they have the personnel, and Chris Ash and that staff, like I think they're seasoned enough as veteran coaches to be able to figure this thing out. Eric, you with me, or do you have another take on this?
I'm not as optimistic as you are. I do think it's possible, and this is why. I think you look, I mentioned this in my live chat yesterday. I had 4 blind resumes of Notre Dame defensive coordinators, and the one who had the best first 4-game start was Brian Van Gorder, by far. Marcus Freeman had some cleanup to do after a couple of games. Al Golden had some rough stuff, and Bob Diaco as well. So I think given Marcus Freeman's expertise, given that he had to fix his own defense in 2021 going into the Purdue game and David Bell and all that stuff, I feel confident in Marcus Freeman taking charge here and collaborating and getting this thing in a better place. As far as Arkansas, with Taylor Green being number 1 in the country in total offense and being 6'6", 235, I'm not as optimistic as that. But with Purdue, yes, I do think we will see incremental improvement this week.
Yeah, one point on the Arkansas thing is that outside of kind of the coverage lapses, I thought that Notre Dame actually did a pretty good job against Marcel Reed, and 17 of 37 was indicative of making life a little bit difficult on him at times. But again, it goes back to those coverage lapses, and what you do well doesn't matter if you're going to let receivers run free across the middle of the field. And that's what was happening against Texas A&M. So to a larger point, if you can't fix that, if that's like the black hole that you've fallen into and that's what it's going to look like, then Notre Dame's in for a long season. But like Eric said, if Marcus Freeman can rein some things in and say, hey, this is who we've been the last 2 seasons, let's get back to that, then maybe a quicker turnaround than I'm expecting is possible. And we could all be like, hey, Mike Singer, you were right. Let's give you your flowers at some point here that Notre Dame turned this thing around. We'll see. I think it can go any number of directions. That's the crazy thing about a college football season is that, yeah, you only play 12 games, but last season after Northern Illinois, we thought that this Notre Dame team was cooked. They were not. It can be the same thing this season, but the changes are on the other side of the ball. And it's a prove it to us type of situation for Chris Ash, Marcus Freeman and company. Prove to us that you can fix this. And then, we'll change the discourse accordingly. We'll just have to see what happens.
If you're going to send Mike actual flowers, I'll chip in for that.
Folks, please hit the thumbs up on this video. Notre Dame fans, please let us know in the comments. Do you agree with what we're saying? Disagree? Again, let us know, and we'll catch you next time.